Hi, everyone. Welcome to News Take. I'm David Chavern, President and CEO of the News Media Alliance. If this is your first time joining us, News Take is where we dive deep into sometimes wonky conversations with people who are working to help the news industry grow and evolve. Today, my two guests are both veterans of the news industry, but far from resting on their past work, they are leaders in the field of news operations and logistics. Let me start by introducing Gregg Fernandes. Gregg is the Vice President of Customer Care and Logistics at the Washington Post. Gregg has worked there for 35 years. He is responsible for customer care for all Washington Post digital and print readers. He also manages print operations, overseeing production, distribution, transportation, and third-party affiliates. In recent years, he's added physical security to his executive portfolio. Gregg has a BA in Behavioral Science and an MA in Administration from the University of Maryland at College Park, and a JD at the University of Maryland Francis King Carey School of Law. Gregg, I didn't know you were a lawyer. Wow, things you learn. Dan Schaub currently serves as the McClatchy Company's Vice President of Supply Chain Operations. This role was designed to provide the necessary leadership and focus as McClatchy works to serve its print readers and grow McClatchy's digital subscription base while offering an array of distribution services to homes and retail outlets throughout the McClatchy markets. On a personal note, Dan formerly coached a junior Olympic softball team, which placed fourth in the nation. 9 out of the 12 kids he coached received softball scholarships to colleges. Dan has been married to his lovely wife, Renee, for 40 years, and he and his wife have 5 children, 3 girls, 2 boys, and 5 grandchildren. Welcome to you both. I'm really excited for this conversation. I think we're going to get into a number of different areas, but we are going to be talking a lot about print and print products. And, one of the things with print, I think it's underappreciated its current role in the economics of the industry still. And it doesn't get enough attention, I think, for a couple of reasons. One, people get distracted by the shiny object of digital sometimes. And also, I think people think they understand the print product, right? It's a business we've been in for probably 100 years. So they really don't understand the evolution and continued innovation in it. And so really what I want to kind of dig to is go a layer deeper in terms of, and we can talk about all the products from your publishers, but really let's start by talking about what print means and then what that business currently looks like right now. So, Gregg, we can start with you. At a very high level in the print ecosystem, what do your customers really like and value about your print products? And what do those products mean for your company currently? Broadly, you don't have to tell us anything proprietary, just broadly
no trade
what it
secrets.
means. Yeah, exactly.
I think the product itself has always offered a curated presentation of news coverage that lets readers feel informed in a timely manner. There's a completeness to it. There's a daily habit that has been formed over many years for customers. There's a beginning and an end. There are opportunities to cover a wide range of subjects in a product that comes in you can fold it. It's easy to read. You can put it in your pocket. You don't have to worry about charging it. And I think that initially, of course, we were also breaking news and what happened going on around the world. Today, it's probably more of an in-depth experience where people have the ability to have more long-form journalism, more analysis, and less dependent on sort of the breaking aspects that you would get from digital.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Did I answer that?
Yeah, Dan?
Yeah, I'll share a recent experience. We held some focus groups in a number of our markets, and it was so exciting to hear about how people rely on our product for local news, how they rely on it to give them the real word on some things that may have a left and a right view, and how do I get the real what's taking place and how's it taking place. In those focus groups, hearing that positive feeling about our brand, but in one group in particular, they talked about I started as a child. I started as a young adult in college reading the print newspaper. And so that I see the print is that is how we established our brands in our markets. That is the icon that brought people to know us, to trust in us, to believe us. And many do today. But with the focus group again, what they talked about is that's where I started. But today I also log on because I know there's a lot more. So they use that as the springboard to understanding our digital products, to understanding, their relationship with a trusted source in a community. So in my mind, it's the seed that helped us build the brands, to build the recognition, to build the trust in the community. And today, there's a good number of folks that still use that. So,
And it is interesting whenever something big happens, people still want to see the big headline in the print product. You even see it on Twitter where people, take pictures of the print product either to, celebrate something that happened or to complain about a headline. But they're, when the Cubs won the World Series, everybody lines up to get that print product because it has a role in sort of our cultural life that is really more than sort of an ephemeral digital experience. What can you tell me about what it means for your company economically? Now, the New York Times is public, and they've been kind of public about what it means there. Frankly, I had a friend of mine who was working in print operations at a publisher who said, "Listen, I just want somebody to thank me every once in a while for paying for everything." But it's not everything now. But I mean, what is it? What is the sort of what can you say about the role it plays in terms of paying for journalists and journalism?
we're not going to discuss numbers, of course, but I
Yeah.
will tell you that there's a very alive and well subscription relationship that we have that includes print subscriptions with folks. So we like that relationship, and we know that consumers see value in that relationship because they pay for those subscriptions. So it's an important part of our economy. It's different than what it used to, of course. And again, I don't think you win with if we just say we're going to count print or we're going to count digital or we're going to count web, we're going to count phones. It's really being where people are and having available to them what they need. And by doing that, I think that the print's an important part of today's ecosystem. Digital is a growing part of today's ecosystem, and when you put that all together, it builds a business model. Back to your point, how important it is. It builds a business model that tells people in a local community where you are, we want to have a relationship, and we prefer that relationship to be paid, and we all win when that happens. So print's an important part of that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think to your previous question about sort of organizational value, and Dan mentioned this earlier, our legacy products established our brands as trusted names and information conveyors to the public. There's a permanency to what we do in print that sort of outmatches what the ephemeral nature of websites, and they're constantly updated. There's 24-hour news cycle, whereas the day is stamped in that final edition on any given day, talking about the news of the day, and to your point, becomes a collector's item. Depending on, people don't go out and print their homepage; they go and buy a newspaper to celebrate milestones, and I think. So there's that aspect, along with the fact that it's still a very healthy business. Our advertisers depend on us to get to readers. We have strong subscription revenues. I think digital has allowed us to be more diversified in terms of our revenue streams, but print is still a strong pillar of all of the revenues that we use to fund our journalism.
Yeah, and it's interesting how it is one touch point in a constellation. There was a piece recently about declines in print circulation at various publishers, and I think people are used to thinking of that as a singular audience metric, but really you have print subscribers who also go on the website, who also use e-edition, who also access social, and the whole relationship with readers is much more complex than it used to be. And I think people are having a hard time catching up to understanding the complexity of that relationship. But an anchor point for a lot of people is that print product. They may then go online or access other products, but it's an anchor point for a lot of folks. Let's talk a little bit.
David, if I
Yeah.
if I may, I just want to highlight, you get it and you got it. That is exactly it. There is no other source in any market that we're a part of that has all the legs that we have, that has an app. They have a website that folks go to. They have a print product that's going. There is nobody that covers our local markets like we do. And it's about capital R relationship. That's exactly what you said. And it's all about that. It's not a one moment newscast here that happens at 10 o'clock or a product that comes out at this time. It's a relationship in which they can check in on and use all of our resources and all of our offerings collectively to really feel like they're getting the full spectrum on what's happening in a market.
I'll pile on to that
Yeah.
just to say that we have more readers today than we've ever had.
Yeah.
Right.
By a lot, right?
They're just consuming us in formats that have evolved, and we've tried to evolve with them.
Yeah. Also, one thing that's not appreciated about the industry is we have much bigger audiences in every dimension. Or in total, we have much bigger audiences than we ever did in whatever previous era was. For a lot of reasons. One, our content's compelling, but also because people can, right? Yes, you get the print product, but you can access all these other things. I have to tell you, one thing I like about the print product is it ends, meaning it's not an incessant fire hose of content. Now, the nature of my job is that I then go online and get an incessant fire hose of content. But there's something about like consuming the news and then being able to think about going on to other things. It is a product that you can consume in that way.
Yeah, you can glance through the newspaper and be armed for just about every water cooler conversation you're going to run into in the office.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the business, actually, how the miracle actually happens. Again, we've sort of culturally sort of accepted the fact that a newsroom will close out a print edition. I don't know what time they close it out. Let's say late at night, and then miraculously at 6 o'clock the next morning, it's on people's doorsteps, right? So I want to get into some of the current challenges to that in the current economy, but can you give some thoughts about how that the process of manufacturing that everyday miracle of the print product, how that's different than it would have been 10 or 15 years ago? What is the manufacturer and distribution elements that are different and how they've evolved?
I could start there maybe is that, in my early years, if you missed that press, you had 24 hours and you weren't going to be able to update that. You weren't going to be able, and there was a lot that happened in 24 hours. Today's system allows you to not worry so much about having it all come together right at a given time. Of course, we want to have a great print product. We want to send it to market, but because of the relationship we want to have with the consumer, they now can log on and get updates early in the morning. The late sports scores where every newspaper across the country used to struggle with, how do I take in this late game? Now we can do that. We couldn't do that in the past. Now we can do that to where whatever time the game ends, we just take them and refer them to our digital offering. We have something amongst our products that's called Extra Extra that captures a whole lot that happens outside of that normal traditional cycle that you described. And this affords us today's changes, as you described them, David. Those changes afford us the opportunity to have a relationship that's multiple times, multiple connections throughout a day.
Yeah, I think there are a couple things. One is technology continues to improve. I think we as an organization, and I think as an industry, are more efficient in what we do than we've ever been. And to Dan's point, we're on tighter deadlines because we're not holding for necessarily the latest news. We're trying to sort of find that sweet spot between a great print product, but a timely delivery. You can put the best newspaper in the industry on someone's doorstep. If they've already left the house, it doesn't do them any good. And I think we've had to be creative with all the challenges in terms of cost and labor, the migration from, say 25, 30 years ago where you had more youth type carriers as we've moved to more adults. And I think some of the difficulties in the industry, Dan and I talk about this a lot, uh, created opportunities for us to partner with other newspapers. There was a time when you would drive down the street and run into a New York Times, a Baltimore Sun, a Washington Post carrier on the same street. Now it's generally one person doing all of those publications, and so you've allowed the profit level for the independent contractor to remain strong, but also streamline the delivery for multiple products. And I think that being open to those types of partnerships and being able to coordinate them, the number of moving pieces in the middle of the night to get all that to happen, that's probably a podcast in and of itself. But it does sort of show just how far we've come in terms of our coordination and logistics.
That's really interesting. Is in as a means of, if you've had in an area, if you have decline in some print circulation, essentially that carrier is also, though, can augment that with delivery of a lot of different products, right?
Yeah,
That's really interesting.
it's a per piece business for the
Yeah.
most part in most delivery systems. And as folks have migrated, as we talked about, people's habits have changed and perhaps still reading us, but reading us in a slightly different format. It's allowed us to keep a robust distribution system in place by finding other ways to supplement those carriers' incomes.
I want to dig into the process, go down a layer deeper in terms of your actual manufacture and delivery process, and then the stresses that you're facing in that. And broadly in the economy, we are seeing stresses in terms of personnel cost, right? Being able to access people, just being able to hire people, but then what you have to pay them, and then all sorts of supply chain costs, everything from fuel for trucks to certainly newsprint in this context has suffered incredible bouts of inflation. What are Tell me explore a little bit of the current stresses you're seeing in the system, and really of those things, what are kind of your biggest problems right now, or what's keeping you up at night in terms of what's been most difficult about continuing this fulfillment process in this environment.
I think that a consistent problem for every person who's in this business is finding the right folks to get papers delivered on a given day. That's a cyclical problem that we've had for time immemorial. I think that the stresses that we have today, besides you mentioned fuel, you mentioned the other additional costs. We have a lot more competitors for the pool of people that we would have counted on in the past. What made our routes attractive is that folks could make supplemental income in a finite window of time in the morning, generally in a time frame where there weren't other opportunities. But with all the gig economy that opportunities that are out there now, there's much more competition for the folks that we would have depended on to get papers delivered. It's one of those things where you have to you have to run a good business. You have to make sure that you're providing a good wage, but at the same time doing it in a cost-effective way. That you're not raising prices so high that customers decide that to trade you for a different format. At least for us, I think finding people to do it. And again, not only is that cyclical year to year, it's cyclical throughout the year. And Dan will tell you, January after Christmas and going into the winter months, it's tough to expect people to be out in terrible weather 365 days a year. But we've seemed to have been able to manage that up to this point.
Yeah, I'll add that every piece of the supply chain has pressure, inflationary pressure, and technology pressure, technology replacing some of the things we did and how we do and how we used to do them. So it's complex today. You really have to think through the entire supply chain and all the partners that are pieces of that supply chain. And how do you put that all together to, in the end, serve readers, right? They don't want to hear about your supply chain. They don't want to hear about your contractor or your printer or anything else. They just want their product delivered and they want the relationship to be strong. So today you have to really think through how are you going to take each piece of that puzzle and strengthen it? Even in the face of, Gregg talked a little bit about carriers in the workforce there. It used to be that we owned the night. We had the gig during the nighttime hours. We had a gig that was really unique, and it could be a second income, or it could be your own business that you really grew over time, whatever you wanted. Well, today with the gig economies that are being introduced night and day, that's heavy competition, and that takes up some of the folks that used to see us as that single resource to fulfill the need they had for that type of work. So
That's really just interesting. You were the gig economy before the gig economy, right?
that's
And
exactly right.
Yep.
that's that. And really, then you enter into somebody's got an economic calculus about all their options for that other supplemental income, and where does that fit into the pie? How do you find people? Just out of curiosity, is it uh, you know, is it recruitment by current carriers? I've got a friend, or a current carrier kind of thing. Running ads. Indeed, I don't know. How do you find people do this?
All of the above would be the answer to that to that question. I think carrier referral is obviously a big one. We are on all of the major online job posting sites. Um, even to the fact that I don't know that we don't do this a lot anymore, but printing carrier bags that have carrier wanted ads on them, so that people realize as they see the bags in the market that they could perhaps handle that route if they chose to. But it is a all consuming full time job to make sure that we have pressure in the market to let people know. Sort of to Dan's point, the strengths of what it is that we offer as a value, and the fact that there's opportunity to make additional revenue. I also think that one of the things that we have that many of the other gig organizations don't have is our carriers believe that they are part of the fourth pillar of democracy.
Yeah.
They understand how much the subscribers value that consistent delivery, the habit that has been formed over the years, and they tend to, they're sitting across from guys on either side of the table who've been here for 20, 30 years, and there's a sense of pride and respect for what they do, and I think I've told you this before. Our job, in a lot of ways, is just not to screw that up, and to make sure that we continue to let people see that value.
David, we have a recruitment playbook that's 50 pages deep. So when Gregg said the kitchen sink, we go about it every way in which we can. And in fact, every week we're looking at different payment methods. How do we pay on Cash App? Because some of the folks that are looking for a gig economy like Cash App. They don't like, the old ways of payment. So, really looking at all the relationship with that partner and what you can do to make it attractive compared to all the other things they could do. I think that's how we win. The other thing that is very attractive for folks, and why do we continue to do well in some cases at recruiting, is it's a business they can build without limits. In other words, some of our distributors who handle tens of thousands of copies a day, and they're running that through their own network they put together. You can't do that with a lot of the other gig economies. The other gig economies are limited in regards to you and your vehicle. But many of our folks grow, and they grow their business, and they still see us as one of the places they could come start a business on their own and grow it for a family, or grow it into something big. And that pays nice dividends for us as we look to recruit people and talk about the opportunity.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Let's talk for a minute about the manufacturing part, the printing. What has happened? There's been consolidation in the industry broadly, right, at the top layer, and we've seen that in multiple places. What has happened at the printing layer? So, for example, do you guys print for other people? Do other people print for you? What does the market structure look like at the manufacturing side?
Yeah, we our goal is to print every publication in the market, assuming we have capacity to do it, and we do most of the major brands that you tick off the top of your head. We print and deliver in this market. The partnerships that I talked about earlier, some of the working together in the industry allows us to also force project where we have other newspapers that are in areas where there's no longer the penetration that we once had. We'll partner with a newspaper to provide either printing, not so much for us. I know Dan has lots of different relationships, but in terms of delivery, we definitely use that to get our paper to as far flung areas as we possibly can, still meeting our newsroom deadlines and those kinds of things.
David, you've picked up on so many of the things that are right down the center of our transformation. Is it used to be that every publisher had their own manufacturing facility, they had their own iron, they spent millions of dollars maintaining that and to bring it to life and to maintain it, and they used it for 3 or 4 hours a night, and then it sat. and today you can't do that, and no business can do that. So what's happened is the industry's come together very nicely. And what you find is there's a region, generally in most parts of the country, there's a regional hub or a facility that's been built that is really well used sometimes almost 24 hours around the clock in regards to them printing and them putting together the packages for all those in the surrounding area. So that's what we see as something that is smart by the industry and helpful to those that have been looking for ways to drive efficiency and to not have the cost to maintain that facility. It's allowed them to do it. We do both. We have quite a few relationships where others print our products, and then we have a case where we print our product in a market as well. So big change, but for the right reason.
Right, and there's multiple frequencies. There's products that are weekly. There's products that are 5 days a week, 7 days a week. That to Dan's point, we try to maximize, and we've done a lot to use our production facility as another revenue stream and as another opportunity to fund our journalism.
Yeah, in terms also, in terms of input costs, I think most people understand cost of people is going up, cost of fuel is going up, but in terms of really industry specific inputs, newsprint. I was talking to somebody the other day about aluminum prices and most people don't understand at all that aluminum prices impact the industry. Broadly, and we don't need exact quotes, but broadly, what kind of inflation are we seeing in those really industry specific inputs? I mean, what have you seen over the last 6 months or so?
Well, it's through the roof. Everybody's read about the paper challenge with the cardboard use and people transforming a manufacturing facility from paper to cardboard because of the need there.
Well, that's interesting, Dan, because I don't know that a lot of people have heard that. And basically the core idea and what's happening is because of home delivery, there's a need for packaging. So you've had paper manufacturing plants move over into cardboard products and away from things like newsprint. Is that's
exactly right. That's exactly right. And they're, like us, their business model's changing and they're searching for the future. They're searching for what they do and how they do it. So, as that happens, of course, there are resets. So most of the resets at this point for all the items you mentioned, whether it be newsprint, plates, or all the pieces that come together to make the manufacturing process work, those costs have been upward, not downward in recent years.
Yeah, exponentially in some instances. I think all of the petroleum-based products, people will be surprised to know that the plastic bags that we use to deliver the paper are a petroleum-based product. Everything you're reading in the newspaper about inflation has affected just about every input of what we do in the manufacturing and delivery process.
So let's talk about sort of future evolution of the manufacturing and delivery parts, and also kind of solutions for some of these challenges on people and inputs and the rest. Well, let me start. Actually, I'm going to start talking about postal, whether you think about it and how you think about that. And what I mean by that is for some areas of the media, the print media, magazines being an example, postal is their primary means of delivery. And then whatever the postal system's going through cost-wise impacts them incredibly. Daily news is a little bit different, right? Because it matters deeply what time you get the product. How do you guys think about postal? Do you at all? What is your, have you sort of modeled out what it would look like to put some product in through the mail as opposed to having it hand delivered?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. It's like which trains are going to which cities and which one do you get on. In some cases, the Postal Service and the local postal team are phenomenal. They do great things. They make things happen within their center. It's like one of our distribution centers that operates like a Swiss clock. Good things come from it. The U.S. Postal Service has some facilities that are they're really adept at taking any kind of product and taking it same day to a customer. So we see a relationship with the Postal Service as critical as part of our whole network, as we put together a network of who gets us to market, who takes us to market here, who takes us to market there. They are today, and we see them maybe even being in a bigger part of what the future looks like. There's also one other thing that's dispelled from the past was it used to be that, well, they deliver at 9 in the morning or they deliver a little later in the day. Again, because of that digital product portfolio we have, you don't have to arrive and have that blank time that you used to have. So it allows you to instead of leading with print and following up with digital, you lead with digital and you follow up with print if you're using the post office in a respective grouping of zip codes or markets.
Yeah, I think that's we view the Postal Service as a partner, an opportunity for us to get product in areas where it's increasingly difficult to do, and it does mean changing sort of the readership habit. I think to Dan's point that the days of being on a doorstep by 5 in the morning, that may not be realistic in every market going forward. But again, and it also sort of segues with the way the product is more towards long form journalism, more towards more in-depth analysis. It's not the necessarily the time sensitive product that it once was, and it is going to mean that our readers are going to have to be willing to evolve with us as we try to find new ways to. I would posit that in some markets, you'd rather have a newspaper delivered sometime during the day than have no opportunity to get to be in one of these news deserts that are unfortunately cropping up all over the place.
Yeah, it's really interesting how it becomes a product discussion, right? You really rethink the value prop and exactly what that product is and the value prop for it, in part by all the different ways you can deliver. I was talking to someone at one of your compatriot publishers, and they were talking about the e-editions, which, by the way, I like that product too. I consume that product as well. Classic iPad e-edition, and that if folks in their market don't get an email with a link to the e-edition by like 5 in the morning, they start getting complaints about it. And they've almost had to have an educational thing about, by the way, you don't need the email to access the e-edition, but there's that sort of, it's almost moving over that set of expectations to just a different product, right? Just like, where's my e-edition? But it does engender, to your point, this whole idea about it's not going to be there at 6 a.m., but that doesn't mean if it's there later, it could be a different thing that's super high value still, right?
Mm-hmm. One of the things that e-edition has solved, though, because Gregg mentioned earlier, those that like the product at 5 o'clock. Well, sometimes has been impossible to get everybody their product at 5 o'clock. You have some zip codes, you're there at 3 o'clock, some at 5 o'clock, and some at 7. Well, the e-edition solves that, because when you hit the button, you don't have to sequence that 41-mile route. Everybody gets it at 3 o'clock, or everybody gets it at that time. So it's solved one of those things that have been a challenge for us for quite some time in regards to how do you give everybody the news quickly and get it to them as you wrap up each day and each cycle.
Super interesting. So Dan, you've got one idea you've been shepherding and talking to folks about, which is the On Time Network. Could you talk a little bit about that and what is it, and then what you hope it evolves into, comes from it?
You got it. So the industry has always worked well together, sometimes worked deeper together on some things rather than others. But one of the things we've realized is that we have something that nobody else has. We go by every street in a market. We go by every retail outlet in a market. And we still do that today. And you look across the country and you take our network of publishers, all the NMA members, and you take a look at the map that they cover. And we cover, 80, 85, 87% of the households in the communities. And then you look out the window and you see there are 2 UPS trucks on the same exact street. we perfected that long time ago. We don't send two people down the same streets. And you realize the capability we have today and the advantage we have. You hear of, the Amazon delivery, and you hear of the challenge that comes to folks like FedEx and UPS in the fourth quarter of every year. And some of it's because you look out the window and see the same folks on the same street. They really haven't perfected what it is to take a product to market. And we've done that. So what we've put together is a group of publishers to say, let's do that. Let's take our markets and let's take our networks and let's tout the work that our networks can do in regards to getting to every household in a market, or the targeted households in a market for retailer X or what have you. So the group's working feverishly on what products do we deliver today? What products can we deliver in the future? What products do we deliver at night? What products do we deliver in the morning? Which retail outlets do we go to? What can we take into those stores? And we have folks today that are taking stuff into retail stores now, and through the network they've come together and been able to share it. That retailer X needs a little help with Y, and it complements the network in a way that, again, I talked earlier about growing a business and somebody having the opportunity to grow a business. It complements the network, and that folks can grow their business by taking advantage of what they're already doing, and going, rather than going down the street and just delivering X, you can now deliver X and Y. If you want a longer day and you say, I want to deliver at night, but I want a little work in the morning as well, we have X that we can deliver to retail stores. So the On Time Network and a group of publishers are coming together and really looking at how can we offer a solution that helps retailers, helps businesses, and helps our network to become stronger in a time and when it can use an extra dollar or two, frankly.
That's really interesting as well. One of the lines I've always used is, there are three people that walk up my driveway every day: the mailman, the Washington Post delivery guy, and the Amazon guy, right? And the latter is probably a sad commentary on how much I buy on Amazon. But the fact is that there are these sort of layers of distribution that are coming to my house every day, and there's got to be some rationalization attached to that, right? Or at least some opportunities for rationalization sometimes. Being able to use your network to deliver packages or postal or otherwise, right? And ultimately, that's what you're saying is you've got this kind of vibrant network. Let's see what we can do with it, right?
That's exactly right. And I can't mention a name here to protect the maybe not so innocent, is that I've toured a lot of distribution centers for other folks outside of our industry. And I was shocked the first two or three times I walked in how they were in about where we were in 1960 or 1970, really struggling with how do you back a truck in, how do you use a diesel instead of a bobtail, how do you organize the product, how do you split it up. I mean, it was like a couple of our folks on tour said, I could fix this in about 3 days, and I could cut their time in half in the distribution warehouse if I just spent 3 days with these folks. And we were polite. We didn't tell them that, of course, but it again confirmed that our industry has this very unique skill and this very unique opportunity to get products to consumers that live in our products. And we've done it for years. To your point, it's been us in the post office that the only two that really have perfected how do you get to every retail outlet and how to every home in a community.
Yeah. And I would argue that we're the only group that has been addressing that last mile problem 7 days a week for the last 100 years.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day about innovation and the news industry, and I said, historically this was and has been an incredibly innovative business. The predecessor association, Newspaper Association of America, actually owned a laboratory in Reston, Virginia. I think we had something to do with inventing organic inks. I'm not sure, but but again, getting to what we've talked about is this daily miracle of the newsroom closes the edition at X time, and a few hours later, it's on people's doorsteps. And all of the engineering and efficiency that goes into that is, it's hard-won innovation over time. So, just out of curiosity, like Gregg, do a lot of your current carriers, would they? I guess one thing, they could be going off to other jobs after they deliver the papers. Do some of them do other kind of gig things then? Like, deliver for Amazon or Uber?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And they've always gone on to another job after they were done with us. I think the gig economy that we talked about earlier just allows them to take further shifts of delivery of product rather than going to an office building or a restaurant or one of those kinds of but we have always been the second or third job that folks have, and I think that they're the Ubers and the food delivery folks and all of those things have just allowed people to continue to do what they know well. They know that, to Dan's point, we drive down every street in the market every day, and everyone will tell you, who's been in this business, who's done this business, will tell you all those streets look completely different at night than they do during the day. So having that expertise, having that knowledge, and the efficiency of being able to do that, there's no reason why you wouldn't want to do it for all products, not just newspapers.
David, back to the online network and for just a minute, and why that really works is what Gregg talked about was that people come to us for a bit, and then they go to Uber for a bit, and then they go over here. We're solving some of that with the network. In other words, if somebody just wants, an hour, a gig of an hour and a half, that's fine. If somebody wants 3 hours, that's fine. If somebody says, I really would like to do this full time, I enjoy it. I like to deliver homes at night and storage during the day. We're solving for them the challenge they have in regards to I have to go here and I have to go there and I have to go here, and it's different payment systems, it's different ways in which I try to figure out what I'm going to do as a skilled professional, a part of this network that takes products to market every night. It helps us, and that helps with retention. Back to the carrier and manpower thing, it helps with retention because you're providing the opportunity to have 1 hour, 3 hours, 6 hours, whatever fits with the business that they're respectively building.
That's really great and really interesting, again, because it gets at this core capacity that you've built up over time, and then how can we use this capacity for a range of things. So just one final question in terms. Listen, in this business, we talk about digital all the time, and I'm guilty of it, right? I talk about digital all the time, and digital is there are we have a lot of challenges, but also a lot of opportunities, but definitely attracts the attention. And both of you and we've talked about it some today, thinking about how the print product is essentially an integrated piece of a digital offering as well. And I know both of you guys think a lot about your digital products and then how all of these things fit together. I guess the bottom line, though, is if you wanted to tell somebody about the print newspaper business and things they might not know or understand or might not appreciate about it, what would you like people to know about the operations you guys oversee?
I would say that it first of all, it's not or, it's and. Yeah. And sometimes we all get forced to say, is it this or is it that? It's really and, number one. Number two, I would say that today it's all about the journalism and getting to the consumer and developing a relationship. Who cares about whether that's digital, print, if it's on a tablet, we'll take it out there. I mean, our mission is to enhance and improve the communities we serve and to bring to life free speech, really, in each and every local community. And whichever platform that happens on, that's great. But I wouldn't worry so much about how it gets there. I would just make sure, are we doing everything we can do to reach households in our market? And back to today's digital reach is way beyond a multiple of 10x versus any reach we ever had when we just relied on a printed material to go to a home. I mean, we're doing substantially better in taking our journalism to our markets because we're using the and theory and not the orders.
That's great.
Yeah, I think to Dan's point, is there another product that you can purchase that is literally updated throughout the day, literally 24/7, and that you can read in multiple formats? I would say probably not. And I think the value of what we do is something that I think people feel intrinsically. Connecting that with the costs associated with what we do. You and I have had this conversation multiple times, David, about all of the people, all of the efforts that go into creating that daily miracle, regardless of the format. I think people don't appreciate what life would be without it until it's gone. And if you talk to folks who live in news deserts, I think they would tell you they wish they had spent a little more time worrying and thinking about all the things that go into to how they got their news. I'm incredibly blessed to be part of an organization that understands how important what we do is, and understands how important each component of what we do, whether it's the folks who've been in the plant for the last 3 years during COVID, folks who've come out in all kinds of weather. I told you my story about the 2 footsteps into the snow to get papers delivered. All of that comes together to create a habit that people have grown accustomed to, and that we're lucky to be a part of.
That's really fantastic. It's a perfect end note. Listen, I just want to thank both of you for the time and really for what you do every day to deliver great journalism to the communities that need it. And so thank you for being with us today. We'll probably have you back next year to see how things have changed. But I want to thank you, Gregg, and thank you, Dan. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.